Well, it's got to be the morning, it's got to be the afternoon, or it's got to be the evening with somebody that's listening to the show. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing and whatever the time of the day is, it's fantastic to have you here. On this episode, I have Colin Jellicoe, Group Human Resources Director at M Group Services. M Group Services is one of those organisations that you may not be conscious of, and you see their vans all over the country. They have 9,000 skilled specialists, 100 locations, and these are the people that in essence deliver the essential infrastructure services within water, energy, transport and telecommunications in the UK and Ireland. They have an absolutely vast reach and are essential services, in essence, I think, in keeping the country going. For me, why did I invite Colin onto the podcast? I've known Colin and worked for Colin as a consultant going into organisations for over a decade now. And it has been a singular pleasure to work with him. But more than that, for me, Colin is the pinnacle of what good HR is and what an HR director should aspire to be. It is not unusual to have HR as a relatively toothless function, providing service, providing process into an organisation, which is fantastic and that needs to be done, but they don't often sit at the top table, and even when they do, HR doesn't always have the power to genuinely influence. And that's not the case with Colin. Colin is somebody that holds space. He has phenomenal influence when it comes to an organisation, a business, and the boardroom. I have never failed to see him navigate the politic, to create trust, and to really help the strategic imperatives of what it is an organisation is trying to deliver commercially by enabling the HR proposition. He really is, for me, one of the most commercially astute, creative and emotionally intelligent people I've seen in that space. So on that note, let's get on with the episode and enjoy the conversation between myself and Colin Jellicoe. Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. Colin, it is fantastic to have you on this episode of Leadership Bites. Welcome.
Hi, Guy. Absolute privilege, sir, to join you and your podcast. Given the enormity of some of the characters you've had, I feel very privileged. So thank you.
Well, that's what they're going to think when they see you. So that's okay. They'll go, he must be important. Look at him. He's on that podcast. So listen, Colin, I know you. We've worked together for, known each other over many years and had moments of dipping in and out of each other's contact and done some great work together in the past. So I'm
many makes me sound old, Guy, but
well, I think we're vintage. That's what I'm saying. So we're vintage. We know each other pretty well, and I've been kind of really keen to get you on the podcast, but it's just been a matter of timing. But so just for people that don't know who you are you and what do you do, and what's the role that you're in, and then we can kind of kick off from there.
Okay. I'm Colin. I am, I guess, an HR professional. I've operated across leadership roles within HR for probably best part of 18, nearly 20 years, I guess, at senior level, a generalist. I'm currently Group HR Director for M Group Services, who, for those that are perhaps not familiar with the name, we operate across the utilities sector, delivering essential services to gas, water, electricity, blue chip clients throughout the UK. That's the official lead-in.
That's it. So I noticed that when I think about buying a car, I suddenly become alert to cars and see them all over the place. So when I knew you were going to work, I started seeing Morrison utility vans all over the place wherever I was going. Yeah. And they were obviously there before, but I just hadn't been paying attention to them. But
it is very much like that. You you will see, Morrison Utility Services, Dyer and Butler, IWJS, are a whole series. There's 16 different brands in the business that bring pretty much the full range of services in regulated environments to our clients and ultimately their customers. And that's what we do really well is keep the gas flowing, keep the electricity on, and keep the water flowing so that you can get out of bed, have your shower, have your cup of tea, and get on your way to work. So yeah, it's a privilege really again to be in a sector that does have such an impact on the UK. It's been interesting throughout COVID. The focus on key workers has rightly been paramount. For us, I guess the slightly less than public face of utilities, keeping the NHS going, keeping all of those services that we've needed. We've been there for we've been there for the UK really, and it's a privilege to be in that position. We understand. So yeah, it's great, but it's a good business.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those ones that it's like all things in life that you don't really fully understand what the need of it is until what you've got stops working.
Absolutely.
So I noticed that, with
that's why I bought a house.
So I just know there's a bit of a lull.
In Wales.
There's a little bit of a lull, so I'm just learning to stop talking.
You would think that we were in different countries, and we're absolutely not. But yeah, I to make myself focused on the importance of these things, I bought a house in mid Wales, which is off grid for gas, off grid for water, and barely on grid for electricity. So I completely appreciate now what we do for all of our customers, and it's definitely painted it in a different light for me. Yeah, it's interesting.
So, Colin, it's actually in terms of the size of the business, people-wise, approximately what's the kind of contingent that you're dealing with? How many people are in the business?
Okay, so across the 16 businesses, we've got just a shade under 10,000 directly employed people at the moment. Probably half of that is what I guess traditionally would be described as blue collar. The guys who are in the field, doing the dirty work for us day in, day out, and the rest of those are the staff, sort of the support services behind to make sure that all works. So about 10,000, but the reality is that maybe is half or maybe a third of the total workforce population that we have, on or in the field every day. We use a lot of subcontract labour as well, which is just the nature of this sector. So yeah, we're probably providing employment opportunity for more like maybe 25 to 30,000 people on a daily basis, which makes us a significant force really in this sector.
Well, I think in any sector.
Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, that is a lot of people. So for me then because we're going to get into what you're focusing on now, what the focus has been, but I always say on these episodes that I think knowing somebody's journey to where they are really helps me value what it is that they then talk about in the present day. So, and we were joking about it just before we came on, but it'd be great to hear that, how did Colin get here? What were some of the ebbs and flows? The experiences that maketh the man. It'd be great to hear them.
Okay. Well, let's go right back then. So I guess brought up on the Wirral. I've tried to lose my sort of semi-Scouse accents that I've had, but then I've lived in the South for a long time. But I grew up on the Wirral. And I went to school and everything there. Didn't do hugely well at school. Was one of those things that didn't seem entirely important to me at the time. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that space. Probably spent more time, I guess, for me, focused on stuff like the Duke of Edinburgh's award, and I was a member of the Boys Brigade for many years. So those sorts of things, outside sports, helping community, all those sorts of things, which at the time seemed really important to me, rather than schoolwork. Probably resulted in me leaving school with not really very much in the qualification front, and I had no idea really what I wanted to do. There was not really a great career plan. Father worked at Camel Shipbuilders, so he was a plater. I recall worked many long hours in what was probably a bit of a dirty job, really. Grandfather was a shop floor manager in the business that made stock margarine, so they were probably my influences. Didn't really fancy the dirty job at Camel Airs, if I'm honest, which was, I guess, was the encouragement from one side of the family. But yeah, no idea what I wanted to do. Maybe a bit of white collar work, a bit of admin was the way that it was sort of looking. And I was really lucky. I despite not wanting to go to Camel Airs, I did join Camel Airs and got a job, really, a commercial apprenticeship at the time, which was probably revolutionary. Actually, you think now that we've got white collar apprenticeships and they're all the rage. For its time, to get a commercial apprenticeship, as it was described, was a bit novel, and I got that off the back of being able to talk about the things I'd done around Duke of Edinburgh and what I'd done in Boys Brigade. It pretty much set me up, to be honest, and we had a good 2-hour conversation with the training manager, as I recall at the time, and focused on all those things about leadership, teamwork and all that sort of gubbins, and it obviously was enough to get me a job. So I started off at Camel Airs as a commercial apprenticeship in the days when trade unions were a big thing in that part of the world, quite a militant workforce. First job was in HR, or personnel and welfare, as some people will recall it being called. As I recall, there wasn't a great deal of welfare that went on, but it was a lot of recruitment, a lot of ER type issues, the occasional getting a bit into a bit of a tussle with a trade union official, but it was it absolutely set you up for life. Really, it was a lot of lessons learnt. Salt of the earth people that really understood their jobs and were great at what they did, and it was I probably would have stayed there for a while. I never really got out of the personnel function. It just seemed to be like almost a natural fit, really. So we did quite a bit of work there. But it was around the time that I guess our relationship with Russia had started to defrost slightly. The military shipyards went into a bit of a decline, and I needed to move on. So I left Camel Airs, went into the construction sector, joined a business called Norwest Holst, still based up in Liverpool, and stayed with them for 22 years. And that business grew from predominantly a smallish building, civils and utilities company into what is now the Vinci or Vinci business, is part of a massive construction company, and I finished there after 22 years as HR director for the UK and our operations overseas in the Middle East. But again, those sectors, that sort of construction sector, goes from boom to bust, and there's a lesson, almost at every turn in the road. There's something to be learned. And have I ever thought about a job outside of HR? Well, no, not really. It's pretty much given me a different job, a different challenge, a different interest almost every day of the 30-ish years that I've been in that sector. So 22 years at Vinci, lots of acquisitions, lots of growth, lots of really good people, engineers, absolutely focused in that very blinkered way that engineers are focused, and the challenges that came with looking after that sort of population was great stuff. And then I sort of thought to myself, well, yeah, HRD, big business, looked after the whole of the UK. Can I see myself being there for another 20 years? Do I want to retire doing this job? And ultimately, the answer came back no. So I left Vinci, and I embarked on what I would describe now as a bit of an adventure. I went and worked in South Korea.
As you do.
As you do. I have to say, when I said to a lot of people going to work overseas, South Korea wasn't the first place they thought of. But yeah, I went to work for Samsung C&T, which is a construction and trading business, is the sort of mothership, really, of the Samsung Corporation.
People only think of TV.
Korea, so the family.
And I remember when you went, obviously, because obviously I knew you then, and, you know, Samsung, and I went, what? And it's not so much it was Korea, but I didn't, who knew? I mean, you know, they do TVs, right? But they are enormous.
They're vast. I mean, huge, and the extent of that business is not really realised by almost anybody outside of the business. I mean, it's, you know, whether it's medical equipment, which is now, you know, around the globe, really, leading edge from that, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's shipbuilding, construction, they trade. I think still significant shareholders in businesses like Starbucks and businesses like that. You know, most people would have said, yeah, TVs or phones, mobile phones. And really, you know, both of those activities really bolt on to the core business that they had since 1923, which was construction and buying and selling stuff. And some of the stuff they built around and have built and continue to build around the globe is you know, absolutely phenomenal stuff in terms of engineering feats. And it's culturally, it's a very, very different place to go and work. It had its challenges almost daily. From you have to start work at 8 o'clock. To you have to sit and listen to the 10-minute TV show that's on at 8 o'clock till 10 past. And then the strangest thing in the world happened was that most of the Koreans fell asleep and didn't wake up until almost lunchtime when they would eat and then spend the afternoon and most of the evening working very hard. So it was a bit of a novelty, really. Lots of people asleep, sat around you in the morning. It was a bit of a shock to the system. But I was 15 months with Samsung, and some of the opportunities that came my way, being, you know, I guess with the background of Vinci, who they looked up to from a construction perspective and thought very highly of, and being an expat in a part of the world where there were very, very few of us, just led to huge opportunity. And I travelled to places, most of which I can remember with some degree of happiness, and some of them that I never ever want to go anywhere near again, if I'm being perfectly honest. You know, I often hear people talk about Saudi Arabia and they say, oh yeah, it's very you know, Riyadh is very conservative, and I go, yeah, well, it's not really in comparison to some of the places that you know, I went to with Samsung. It is a real shock to the system. But yeah, whether that was being in Australia or Malaysia or Singapore and some of the stuff to get involved in, which, you know, I look back on now and think I had no right to get involved in stuff like that. It was not core HR activity. It actually was just good general business leadership, development. And you know, it was a challenge. It was a huge challenge being asked to do stuff that was outside of my comfort zone. But you know, I came back a completely different character to the one that I went, and hopefully better for it. Yeah, it was 15 months. Came back, did a little bit of a stint for Network Rail for predominantly around the property business and their group functions. And then the opportunity at M Group Services, or Morrison Utility Services as it was at the time, came up. And, again, opportunity, growing business, very acquisitive, good organic growth, fantastic people. And I think probably what I've learned about business over 30-something years, not going to give you the exact number of years, but 30-something years, is it's just, people first, people second, and people last. These organisations is just about people, it's a great joy really to be able to be in a position where getting the most out of our people is my challenge. It's absolutely about getting maximum benefit from our people in whichever way we can, and looking after them and taking great care of what is and often said, but what our is and are our greatest assets. We have nothing else. We don't own very much property. We generally don't own the vehicles that we use. It's our people, and that's again a great privilege really for us to be in a position where we want to work with them and to get the most out of those people. So there you go.
I love it. I love it. And of course, we've known each other. I don't know how long we've known each other now. Is it 15 years? Is it? Or longer? 20? I don't know.
No. It's not, definitely 12? Not 20.
12?
It's probably about 12, yeah.
12. I said this because,
on 12.
Because, Kevin Green, who is a colleague of mine who, who's worked with you as well with me. And he said to me, how long have we known each other? I said, 12 years. He says, no, it's over 20. So I was like, okay, so I'm never quite sure. But I'm just wondering if an email's gone out now around Samsung going, check if anybody's asleep at their desk. And if they are, because there's a bloke on a UK podcast who used to work for us who's just said,
yeah, well, they won't be very happy if they hear that fed back to them. I've got to be honest.
It'll be hilarious. This will be played. This will be played at the board in Korea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, listen,
it's a fantastic experience, and I would say to anybody that you sometimes you look at those opportunities and you think, shall I? And I know lots of people who have gone, no, let's just take the safe bet. But it was an opportunity that it was gifted to me because of the experience I'd gained with Vinci, with another business. And I would say, if anyone was in that position, go for it. It's not always easy, and it's not always straightforward. But every single day is a learning experience. Every day is a training day. And I look back, I've forgotten all of the challenges, but where it was very difficult. And I remember now with fondness that the country and the people and most of the things that I got involved in, and the family that went with me equally. They are shaped by the experience, as we all are. They're shaped by the experiences that we enjoy, and they wouldn't change it for the world. It was a great opportunity, great experience. But yeah, culturally, very different.
Well, so there's two things for me there. I often think that you get to a level where your stuff. And of course, you're always going to learn, and every day is a school day and all that kind of stuff. But you get to a point where, in essence, I know my trade. And when you get to that level, people often go, especially for senior leadership, it's, well, how do I develop? And it's exposure. It's exposure to, inverted commas, stuff. Because you know what your job is. Yeah. It's now about your personal growth. So the experience of you is deeper because you are more because of, inverted commas, stuff, which doesn't sound very scientific, but I think I've come to believe that.
No. It's not scientific at all, but the fact is that it is the stuff that comes along, and and you take time to understand people and it's for me now, it's all had a really positive effect. But I would say to people, you've got to take those opportunities when they come.
So how you mentioned, you came back. I don't know if you said better for it or even different, but what was the difference? Who were you when you went, and who were you when you came back?
Yeah, I think probably what I had to realise when I got over there was that whilst there was a degree of respect for the experience that you'd gained, and I went through 11 interviews to get that job at Samsung. It was no quick 2-minute conversation in Costa Coffee on the services. It was a really thorough process, and 2 or 3 trips over to South Korea to meet people. And but when I got there, all the experience counted for nothing. It was my knowledge of employment law, my knowledge of trade unions, the ER side, even the way that I understood that leaders thought and the way they process things, and the commercial, all of that changed. All of that went straight out the window because Koreans operate completely differently. And so, right? I've got to start. It's a different world. Yeah. It fundamentally is a different world, and I had to sit there and go, I can't use anything I've brought with me. I can't, and I don't mean a pack of papers that I'd picked up and brought with me, or the ideas that I'd put into effect at Vinci and other places. It was there's nothing. There's nothing in my brain that I can use from the past. I've got to work out how I can make a difference, and that's for me that's really important. Is how do I make a difference to this business in a very short space of time? And try doing that when they don't speak English and I definitely don't speak any Korean. So you're dealing with interpreters who put their own slant on things as well. Which I learned quickly.
That's very interesting, is it? And, did I actually just say that? That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Because that isn't the reaction I was looking for.
You just give me an answer to a question. Yeah, you give me an answer to a question I definitely didn't ask. What's going on there? So you sort of learn to work with that, and of course also I'm in HR. In a foreign place with about 60 expats, and suddenly all 60 expats want to feed all of their problems into me, thinking that I can fix them, and that it wasn't really part of the job. So I think humbled in lots of respects. I think acknowledging that I work with some very, very bright people. Lots of people with MBAs and PhDs and so forth from. In Samsung's own words, that the best that the world had to offer were gathered together in Seoul, to make Samsung the best business that it could be, and that's humbling. I think the experience of having to understand a foreign to me what was a foreign culture and a completely different way of going about business, even down to the we don't shake hands. What you need to do instead is to learn how far you bow. If you're at 90, if you're not at 90 degrees when you bow to an executive vice president, you're doing something wrong. It's all of that. How do I operate in this space? How do I get over the basics? And all of that was a massive learning experience. I guess there were also things that they were asking us to fix for them in South Korea, which at the time I think I'd not really taken from the UK as being an issue. So this was end of 2013, beginning of 2014. And I can remember that one of the things that they said to us very early on, and it was a task really that we just needed to get the HR function to work with, really, was the fact that people use their phones all the time. And you think, well, isn't that good? But no, they're using their phones all the time. And actually, I sat in an interview with 2 executive vice presidents for a role, and during the call, they both took phone calls. So during an interview, they both took phone calls, and they literally answered the phone and put their head below the desk to have the conversation. And you think, I get it now. So the phone had pretty much become the determining factor in where their priorities lay, and they recognised that. But I never saw that as an issue in the UK before I went. When I came back, and it was it was 2 years. Suddenly there's a actually I can see that becoming an issue, and from then to now, we do have that issue. We, as business, we are, everyone's got a phone, laptop, iPad. I mean, they come into meetings armed with all of this kit, and you're never really sure whether they're in the meeting and present and participating, or whether they're doing emails or their shopping list, or well, that's probably a slightly disingenuous, but they're involved in something else. And so I guess, again, reflecting that the time in South Korea probably gave me a little bit of a window to what the future was going to be like in terms of problems for the UK and what we've returned to, and how we might challenge that a little bit, really. And it is about that being present, isn't it? It's about the, I'm talking to you today, and I'm focused on you. I've not got a phone around me, and that my attention is with you. But often, how many times do we have conversations where actually I'm not really sure that the person who's talking to me is actually with me in the room and present? And I guess that sort of insight of the things which I think have stood me in good stead for when I've come back, really. And also I think I'm quite commercial as HR. I think I can read a P&L account, and I can read a balance sheet. I can do all that sort of stuff. I understand the concept of, return on investment, and et cetera. I get all of that. But the opportunities I had whilst I was working overseas to get involved in bidding jobs and business planning and all of that sort of stuff has just given me an insight that I would never have had otherwise. And that's probably, it's changed the way I look at the people who are doing those jobs in the UK, and I'm probably a bit more considerate of the challenges that they have and the tasks that they have and the pressure that comes with those jobs. So I think I'm probably slightly less than I have high standards. All the teams that have ever worked for me will tell you, and a lot of those people. So they will tell you that we get things right, and perfection is to be expected. But I think I've probably come back slightly more tolerant. Probably a bit more considerate of people, of what people have got to cope with in the round, and how that affects them in work. So it's made me a better and more considerate individual, I guess.
And you brought up no, not at all. That we've got this slight delay, which is I've not had before, but we'll manage past it. Which is, I know you to be highly commercial. I mean, you say commercial, but I think one of the things I really note about you is that there are, it's oversimplistic, but to say that there are HR people who are the caricature of HR people, which any role can be its own caricature, but that is, and the HR caricature to me is incredibly knowledgeable about HR. Sometimes uses the law to kind of try and leverage influence, as in, well, that is the law, and that's what we've got to do. Or they talk about things as if it's the law, but actually it's just best practice. That's not actually what actually has to happen. And, you've always struck me as one of those people that can sit in a room and say, well, I might not be the ops director and I might not be the sales director, but I do know what you're talking about. And I'm very capable of having a conversation with you at that level. And I think that's one of the credibility points that has always shone through about you. And I guess that's leading me to a question that is, when you've got people in that HR role, the importance in your mind of, it's almost a given that you understand HR, that you understand the law or whatever. But how do you...
It's the day job.
Yeah, it's the day job. But here's the biggest issue I see for a lot of HR people is that sense that they feel like the poor relative. They feel as if they're, well, I'm not the sales force. I'm not generating finances. So they often feel like they are, we need to be at the table. HR should be at the table. And you've always been at the table.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you will be in about a week when they realize that, this role's supposed to be at the table. So just your thoughts on, what HR really is about. I'd really like to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't worry about being at the top table, which is probably the first thing to say. Yeah. I think you have to earn the right. HR has to earn the right to sit at the top table, and I don't even think that doesn't mean being a statutory director of a business. What that means for me is that the senior team, will lean on you for guidance and advice and opinion when they need it, and most of the time that's probably often behind closed doors rather than perhaps in board meetings where there's a big presence of people. It's for me, HR is about the difference we make in the business, and our credibility comes from what we can do with and for people to get the most out of them. It's absolutely about understanding what makes people tick, what makes people want to come to work every day, what makes them love the jobs that they do, and will go the extra mile for us every single day. The law is there. I wouldn't ever describe it as a lever. I think most of the time throughout my career, I find ways of trying to avoid the law rather than quoting it to people as being a blocker. We're in a country that is normally fairly compliant. That's the British way, is that there is a law, and we will try to follow it as best we can. And actually, I think most people understand that. The art of HR is how we work within that framework, but continue to deliver great stuff for our business and help our leadership and management understand the people and how to get the best out of them. And sometimes the ideas that we have, and sometimes the conversations that we have, take months and years really for it to have an effect in the business. And I've had conversations with people in the past, and we've had the nod coming from the other side of the table, and 6 months later it's been fed back to me as their greatest idea, and I go, fantastic, that's wonderful. Let's get on with it. And that's absolutely fine. And I know some of my colleagues in the profession, absolutely are in the same space, but equally a lot, are not. And I guess it's horses for courses. The sectors are different, people are different. At the end of the day, you've got to find your niche about what where you can make a difference. And I guess for me, it's always been, and I probably go back to learnings very early on, is how do you get that autonomy for people, that they feel as though they've got a say in the way they do their job, that they can control what they do, and they're adding good value is autonomy, and people generally want to be great at what they do. So how can I make Guy be the greatest leadership guru that has ever been? In fairness, might be a bit of a challenge, but generally it's about that mastery and helping people be just amazing, and that they understand. So I guess if I was to sum that up, it's around that sort of autonomy, mastery, and purpose piece. That that's what we've got to focus on. They're the things that make people want to come and work for your business, and they want to go the extra mile every day and nail it, and also to leave a bit of themselves, and to share, all of that they bring to the business with the people that are coming up and that they're working with. And I can't remember who said it. I'm terrible at names, which is normally an HR thing. You deal with people but can't really remember names. But I can't remember who it was that said you get to the top and you've got to remember to send the elevator down for people at the bottom, and that's absolutely right. And I guess the joy of my job and the joy of being as I guess a senior in the role as I am is that I've been able to choose my teams. I've got great people. I think there's probably a skill in that, is choosing the best people I can afford, and enabling them to be able to do what they enjoy doing as well, and deliver and helping people coming up the chain really, and make sure that there is a sustainable, a resilient team that comes through behind me as well.
So I've got quite a few organisations that I deal with that are private equity based. They are very often, some of them are startups, and there's a few younger HR, I'm going to say managers. They're not directors because the company isn't of that size, and they often will say to me, as the company grows, I want to stop being just a service provider. And I'm not at the top table, because when we started, there was 10 of us, 15 of us, 20 of us, whatever it is. So I was, I was kind of the provision of HR. We're getting bigger and bigger, but I'm still seen as that at that level. And I wonder if there's a counsel from you that says, well, of course, you can always go somewhere else and reinvent yourself. But if you're going to do it in your own space as an organization gets bigger, or maybe somebody like yourself who turns up and there are certain players in the business who don't want to let go of their span of control, even if you are as good as you say you are, what's the counsel or the narrative for you about getting people to shift their perspective on what that role is? Because some will not know because they won't have experienced it, but some will know and they just don't want to let go.
Yeah. Well, I think what you've got to say is that every single role and every single person is different, aren't they? And the joy of this job is that I work with an ops board at group level that's got 12 people on it, and they're all very, very different. And they will all have a perception of me which is very different from individual to individual. And some of them, will come to me for technical advice or for legal advice. Others will have, a good cry on the shoulder every now and again, and they take counsel, and that's wonderful. And I guess, I've just come to the position where I'm comfortable with that. I don't need to have the same relationship with everyone. What I need to do is to be able to be for each of those people in the senior team, as with my team, the thing that they need at that point in time. And I take what I take from that is that I'm making a difference to them. They will be. I want to make them better than they are today. I want to get them to a different place. If that means collectively that the business moves to a different, better place, then that's amazing as well. But I think it's I've heard you talk about the shadowy cast, and that absolutely is an important perspective for me. Is that the values of this business and my personal set of values are what I hold dearly to me, and I want to see people or people see me as living those values day in, day out, and trying to create those relationships which do build the business. I guess what I would say to people who are right at the start of their career and are probably managers today is, inevitably changing job is probably a reality. You are in this place where, I remember when I sort of left the shipyard, and they saw me, the same 18-year-old that started on that day, who knew nothing, and probably wore horrible coloured ties and with horrible coloured shirts. That's the perception they have, and it's framed around your initial meeting with that individual. And you could have moved on, as I did, 6 years, and I've gained loads of experience, and I'm a much different person. But they still see the one that they had that first impression of, and you've got to either redress that position and have one of those conversations where you just go, well, I'm different, and I'm better, and I'm bigger, and I can do more things for you. And if they are the right sort of people, they will go, yes, you're right. Now let's give you that opportunity. Now, sometimes you have to have that conversation. Sometimes people see that for themselves and will come to you. But I think you've just got to be really self-aware of what you want to get out of your career, and where you want to be, and be in a space where what you're doing is adding real value to you, and not really worry about what people's perception of you might be, whether you've got a statutory directorship, whether the bank balance is X as opposed to Y. I do the job I do because I love doing it. I do the job I do here because I make a difference. And if that works for me, then I'm really happy where I am. And I would say to people, you need to get in the same place. You need to get in a position where you're comfortable. If you're not happy with it, change it. And often that is just having a conversation with people. Sometimes it's about changing job. But you've got to work it out for yourself, really, and take some really brave decisions every now and again, which will take you on a different path. There isn't a path set out in stone which everybody needs to take, and that's the joy of this job, is that every single one of us that operates in this field is different, as everyone else in our business is different, and it's got to work for you.
I buy into that. That's,
I'm not sure that answers your question, but that's
no. I think that's it. I think there are just moments where if you think you are ready to add value and do more, then you have to have the conversation about that. And you're right. It might be, well, what would you need to let go? Do you believe that I can add that value? And if you do, great. And if you don't, then this may not be the place for me. And, so the stuff of life, you got to move forward. Yeah. So
absolutely. You have to keep moving forward. I think what I would say, Guy, is that I very clearly have had in my mind an ever evolving place I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Before I got an HR director's role, and I got an HRD's role when I was 28. I wanted to be an HR director and have my own team by the time I was 30. And that had been it. Everything had been striving towards that. I achieved that at 28, and then it's like, great, where do I go now? And you have to reset. You have to reset that and go, where am I going now? Where am I going now? But I've been gifted with working for some amazing people, and that's throughout my career, whether it be at Camel Airs, at Vinci, several people, and again at M Group, I work with some amazing people. But I don't ever expect them to come and knock on my door and say to me, yeah, you're fantastic. Let's give you another job and double your salary. It's about me. It's about me and where I want to be. You have to go out and kick down some doors every now and again and tell people that, I can do that. I can deliver that for you. I can operate in a different arena. I can operate in a different way. I can give you those results that you want. For me, and it might just be luck, but for me, a lot of those brave movements have turned out to be beneficial. And I have gone on and done more and got wider experience and a broader perspective on things, and it's been a great help. For anyone coming up, it's don't wait. Don't wait. There is this balance, isn't there, between knowing you've got enough experience to be able to succeed in your ambitions, but don't let anybody tell you you're never good enough. You can change that. Go out, read a book, Go out and read a book.
Boom.
Go out and read the book. Go out and talk to people. Watch a podcast. You can make yourself better every single day. And I think that's we have that obligation on ourselves to change ourselves every day and take the opportunities that come around.
So listen,
yeah.
I could do this for another 12 hours with you, which is always my problem. But just to bring us up to date with what, and probably more of a kind of a sense of things. As an organization, 10,000 people, plus, almost the same again, in that associate sort of subspace. And, there was pre-COVID, there was COVID, and then there was that kind of, because you're classed as an essential service, right? Is that right? So yeah, keeping the water going and all that kind of stuff. Just what has been, if you kind of reflect, because, I remember asking you at the time, how are things going? And you went, dude, I'm in it now. See ya. Because I'm kind of busy, and which made a lot of sense. And it's almost, with a little bit of, I know we're still going through things, but it's settled. What has been that, on reflection, the big challenge of that period of holy schmoly, this thing's happening, what does it mean, and all that? Is there a kind of, I think the thing that I've really pulled on the most, or the thing that I've had to bring to the party the most to make that work and to steer the ship that I'm supposed to be steering, what has that been, or what does that feel like you've had to do?
Well, I think you're right. It was a shock. March came all of a sudden in many respects to us that we suddenly needed to do things different. At one point we had 3,500 people on furlough. We had lots of people working from home. I think the thing that the business needed at the time, we were not clever here in HR for being able to do this. Anybody could have done this, but what we was here, and we stayed here. Now, by chance, we happened to sit in the offices that we have here in Stevenage, but it didn't really matter physically where we sat, but we were here for the business. At times when actually the distractions that were around about, can I go out? Can I go shopping? Can we still put people to work? Can we go in people's homes? All of that stuff was going on. And I think what we created here was a bit of an anchor of reality and what we thought at the time was really good, solid advice and guidance. And, we reduced our numbers, operating numbers here in HR to a very small number and became, as best as we could, experts in what was coming out of government overnight, so that we became that anchor for the business. And, I don't need to say this because the business has said it to us, but at times when there was not a lot of other guidance going on, actually, the absolutely common sense, let's deal with this as we need to do on a day-by-day basis and make sure we keep as many people in the field and keep as normal as we possibly can, was probably the thing that kept us going as a function, B as a business, but C as individuals. We were there for people, and the business has remained there for people. It's done. You could not have asked any more of this business in terms of the way that it's paid its people. Way more than the government wanted. Offered us in terms of reimbursement. We've looked after our people, and that I know will pay dividends for us in the future. But I look back on 6 months, and are we better? Are we better for COVID? Are we better for the experience? Well, I think you have to be. You don't go through an experience like that and come out the other side and whinge about it. We've learned a lot of things. We've learned that our people can operate in a more autonomous way. We know that they can follow the rules. We know that they are there for our customers and for our customers. They've been there to support the general public, and the number of instances where we can quote that our people have gone way beyond the extra mile to support our clients and their customers is numerous, and it's great to see. But there will be a legacy of COVID, which is also very difficult for us to manage. We hear every day of the issues around mental health being a more difficult situation for us, and that's true. We have more situations and cases that we're helping people with today than we were pre-COVID. Some of that, I think, is because people feel able to talk more than perhaps they did pre-COVID. It perhaps has been a watershed in that sharing of problems and issues, and that in that respect, that's great. But the isolation that people feel and the challenge that they've had in working from home has made us work in different ways, and that has created scars for people as well. So yeah, I think I do look on it as a positive experience. I think there are still challenges, and I still think there are still things for us to achieve before we can say that we've come out the other side and we're better for it. But I think the one thing that we've done as an HR function is to still be here, and I know that when I read the HR material and people management material that is out there, that has been an issue for some businesses as well. So yeah, proud of the fact that we've been able to be there for the business, and so that it has been able to carry on doing the great work that it does. And our people, whether they be in the field, laying pipes in the ground, or whether they're in the offices, are just amazing people, great people.
So listen, Colin, time has ticked. Amazingly, I don't know exactly how long, but maybe an hour. But it's we've been chatting away, and that I'll keep going, but I'm going to stop. There might be a phase 2. So I'm just going to say thank you so much for coming on this episode. I have, apart from we've now mastered the delay, I think, of waiting for each other to stop. So, but it's been a joy.
Right now, we've got it.
I love talking to you. I love hearing what you've got to say. I think you epitomise, because I have that spectrum. I get to work across multiple businesses, over a X amount of time, and you are, for me, and I'm going to say it in a public space, you are that absolutely epitome of somebody who understands HR, understands the commercials, understands the balance between doing a job and adding value. And I think I've seen you play the short game, as in that needs to be done. I've seen you play the long game, which, well, hold on, let's just sow the seed and let's see where that goes. But you've always, I think, demonstrated that if I'm saying I'm going to do something, then by hook or by flipping crook, it's going to happen. And there's ebbs and flows with that. Yeah, exactly. And I've seen that, probably sometimes to your detriment, where I've said, hey, just but I get it, and I've respected that massively. And so listen, I'm just going to say thank you for being on this episode, and stay on for a few moments.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Guy.
Fantastic. That's it. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share so others get to hear about us, and subscribe so you keep up to date on new episodes. Also visit livingbrave.com if you want to connect with me and find out more about executive coaching, team effectiveness, and changing culture. Oh, and of course you can buy my book Living Brave Leadership on Amazon. So on that note, see you soon.